Hey humans, we're back again. This time with a, what year is it? I think it's a 2002. It's a Yamaha R6. There's a story, and there always is a story. I'll make it short. So the guy gets in touch with me. I got an email from him actually saying my bike's got blow by, I think he said. I think it needs an engine rebuild, possible rings, etc, etc. It's done 27,000 miles. So immediately I think, fucking hell, R1 with 27,000 miles on it, there's no way, unless it's had a very, very hard life, that the engine's worn out. Anyway, so I get on the phone with this guy and have a chat with him. Long story very short, it turns out it's actually got a massive flat spot just off idle up to sort of 5,000-6,000 RPM. And he's miles away, he brought it to me in the back of a van. It's already been to a dealer near him, who we won't name, who said they'd ultrasonically clean the carbs, and the guy knows a little bit, and he said, well, to me the carbs still look dirty externally, so I think this guy's pulling me chain a bit, and it hasn't actually had the carbs ultrasonically cleaned. So the blow-by I don't know about. He said it seemed to be breathing really heavy from the crankcase breather. So we'll investigate that a little bit. But he said it runs alright, it ticks over fine, which means it's almost certainly got okay compression. And I suspect that because he sent me some pictures of what the carbs look like on the outside, and we'll have a look when we get into it, but I'm pretty sure it's not had the carbs cleaned. Certainly not in an ultrasonic tank. So anyway, where am I going with this? So yeah, this flat spot, I'm fairly sure that it's carburation related. So we'll start it up now. This came in the back of a van, and I haven't even started it. So let's see what it's like. So full choke. It's cold. It's first thing in the morning. Freezing cold in here. Doesn't sound great, does he? Straight away. Sort of sounds like it's on 3 cylinders to me. Now it's on 4 maybe. Yeah, it's on 4 now, but it's got a bit of a miss. Just let it warm up a little bit. As it's coming off choke, it's on to 3 cylinders now. So when it drops down onto tick over, it goes on to 3 cylinders. You tickle the throttle. Yeah, something nice. Take the choke off completely. It might cut out. See, the guy said to me, oh no, it ticks over fine. Actually, no, he didn't say that. He said it takes a while to come down to idle. So when you rev it up high, it hangs and doesn't quite come back down to idle. It's not warm yet. Let's get it proper warm and see how it is then. Right, so starting to get a bit of heat into it now. It's ticking over on 3 cylinders. Can you hear that? Da, 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 da. And then when you give it throttle, it comes onto 4. That sets alarm bells off straight away for me. If somebody's been in there, that's weird. That could just be mixture screws badly adjusted, carb synchronization way off. Something odd going on in there for it to be all right. Once it's above 2,500, it sounds like it's on 4. The moment you let it, although there's a bit of a miss there still, but as soon as you let it drop to idle, it's not a happy bunny. My workshop isn't on fire, by the way. It's just my log burner, in case you were wondering. Okay, now going to need to ride it. So if you learn nothing from this video, remember this, okay? And this, a lot of you guys that do this for a living that watch will already know this, but if you're doing any kind of diagnostic work or you're trying to repair something, now remember this: you have to be able to replicate the fault, reliably replicate the fault. If you can't reliably replicate the fault, i.e., well, it only does it once every Thursday when there's a southwesterly wind and it's 12 degrees, you'll fucking never be able to repair it. Don't be ashamed to say to a customer, I'm sorry mate, I can't help you, I can't fix it. Unless, if you're telling me it's some weird intermittent electrical fault, even if you've got an inkling that you think, oh, I think it might be X, Y or Z, just don't do it, because you'll put a part on that bike thinking, oh, that's almost certainly going to fix it, and then it doesn't. You fucking own that problem then. So just don't do it to yourself. Just say, I'm sorry mate, until the problem is either easily replicatable or it's doing it all the time, because you'll never know whether you've repaired it. Do you see what I mean? It's just, you can get yourself backed right into a corner, and you seriously do not want to go there, especially if you're taking money off the customer. It's not fair on the customer for you to take his money. People, I'm going to go off on a rant here, I call it shotgun diagnosis. People that don't understand how the systems work and what's going wrong, they think, and it's normally the most expensive part that gets blamed. So it's normally the bloody engine ECU or something. It's the ECU, or if they can't fix it, it's the ECU mate, you'll have to get a new ECU for it. And that's their way of saying, well, we don't actually know what's wrong, we're just going to blame the ECU. Shotgun diagnosis is a nightmare, and it goes on a lot in it goes on a lot in the car trade, and it goes on it's probably more prevalent in the motorbike trade. People just throw bloody parts at things to try and fix them rather than actually properly diagnosing the fault. So anyway, rant over. So you have to replicate the fault. So you can hear the wind outside. It's windy as hell and freezing cold, but I am gonna actually have to ride this bike because I need to know what it feels like. So when I've done whatever I'm going to do, and I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, I can then ride it and be 100% certain that I fixed it. Obviously I'll know if it's ticking over on 4 cylinders, but I need to know what it's like to ride it. Anyway, I'm waffling. I'm going to go ride it. We'll see how it is, and then we'll make a plan for fixing it. Of course, the other thing, before I actually go and ride it, is could be no compression on 1 cylinder, of course, and I'm sure a lot of you were shouting that at the screen. Ticking over on 3 cylinders only at idle, then comes on to 4 cylinders as you get the revs up and compression increases, or as the speed of the engine increases. So if you had, for example, a leaky exhaust valve, when the engine's turning slowly, there's time enough for the compressed gases in the cylinder to escape from the hole in the exhaust valve, from the leaky exhaust valve. But as the engine speed increases, there isn't enough time through that little leaky valve for the compressed gas to escape, and then you'll have enough compression for the engine to start running. So often low compression on 1 cylinder, you get that symptom, you get a misfire on that cylinder until the revs are up. And that might tie in with what you said about it breathing heavy through the crankcase breather. Anyway, let's go and have a quick ride and see what this flat spot feels like, and then we'll get it apart and, I don't know, cylinder leak test, compression test. Maybe before I do any of that, I might just put some vacuum gauges on the carbs and see if they're a million miles out. Of course, if you've got low compression, this often happens actually, and I don't want to go off on one again, but if you've got a cylinder with low compression and you put vacuum gauges on to balance the carbs and synchronize the carbs so the gauges look correct, what's actually happening is, because you've got a leaky valve or whatever, you haven't got the same vacuum in the inlet manifold that you should have. So actually to get the vacuum gauges adjusted correctly, the carbs are massively out of adjustment, and unless you do a compression test, you're going to go round and round the houses. Anyway, I'm waffling. Let's go ride it. Righto guys, this is going to be the shortest road test in history. While I've been dicking around setting up my camera, it started to rain. But we're going to need to find out what's wrong with this thing, so we're going to have a little ride on it. But it's going to be short. And probably not very sweet. Yeah, it's poorly sick, this motorbike. Oh, fuck me, put the side stand up might help. Bloody hell. Yeah, not very happy at all. You've got to love a wet road test, haven't you? Still on 3 cylinders, look. We're... oh, dear me. Not happy. Yeah, so this is my road from the other direction, which you never get to see, because I'm... yeah, as soon as you get sort of above 3,000, seems alright. Probably not seeing that. I've got water on the lens, probably, have I? We'll just go this way. We'll go down to the bottom of the road and... yeah, this bike is very sick. So it doesn't feel... oh, shaky camera. It doesn't feel... I was expecting, when I open the throttle now, a big flat spot at that sort of mid-range area. It doesn't seem to be like that. Yeah, it's a bit woolly actually. And it's not warm yet either. Neither am I. What a fucking miserable day. Yeah, I normally, this is the way the road test you've seen, let's not get knocked off on camera, hey, the road test you've seen, I've gone the other way on this road. Bloody hell, it's windy. Let's just go up this road here. Yeah, it's woolly when you open it. Oh yeah. Hear that miss? Maybe not. Bloody bits of stick in the road. Yeah, it's not happy at all. It's basically under load. So 4,000 revs, you know, 3/4 throttle, making it pull hard. It's let's just turn around in here. There's no point in prolonging my agony. And then coming back down. Yeah, it's on 3 cylinders ticking over. And give it some beans to get it to pull away. Right. When the revs get up, sort of above 6,500, 7,000, it seems to pull clean. Right, so back in the warm, slightly warmer workshop. It's doing. So here's the thing, and I don't mean to be insulting to the customer, but he said, yeah, it ticks over fine. But it just takes a while to come back down to idle. Now it does hang a little bit. And although it's ticking over, you can probably hear on camera, it's bloody not on, it's only on 3 cylinders. That steam, by the way, is just water on the radiator. Yeah, so it doesn't tick over okay. So never believe a customer in the nicest possible way. I'm going to take the tank and stuff off now, and so we need to be mindful that the guy said that it was breathing heavy through the crankcase breather, but yeah, basically we need to make our own decision about that. My guess is probably badly set up carburetors. We'll see. Righto, so first thing is this thing here. This is the crankcase breather here, this little spigot coming off the back of the crankcase. And this is like a collector tank, because when they breathe, there's a little oil trap built into the crankcase, but they breathe oil vapor. Rather than fill the airbox up with oil, this catches the oil vapor and it drains back in anyway. So that clip was on there. I've just moved that clip. So if we take this off the airbox in the crankcase and start her up. Yeah, it does. Oh dear, can you hear that? It is breathing quite heavy. It's breathing quite heavy, and if I put my finger over it, hear that? Focus. Okay. That's bad. So what's happening? You're probably already aware, 4-cylinder engine. When number 1 and number 4 are at top dead centre, so at the top of their stroke, number 2 and number 3 are at the bottom of their stroke. So as the pistons go up and down, they're displacing a volume of air in the crankcase, but the net effect, the air is just moving, as one piston goes up, one goes down. So although you'll feel some movement of air at the crankcase breather, you shouldn't pressurise the crankcase like that. What's happening is, there's exactly as the guy thought, there seems to be some blow-by past the rings. So there's a few, that's a very crude way of telling whether the rings are leaking. What we need to do now is dive a little bit deeper, find out which cylinder it is, and then do a cylinder leak test or a compression test to get a better idea of what's actually gone wrong with it. Now there are different ways of skinning it. There's a thing, I don't really want to get into that now, but there's a thing called a relative compression test, and you can put an amp clamp on the battery lead and crank it over, disable the ignition, sort of unplug the coils or whatever, and crank it, and you can look at the amount of current, what I'm trying to say, you can see the amount of current that the starter motor is pulling, and then you can synchronize it with a cylinder, so you can see 1 2 3 4, or 1 2 3 low compression, 1 2 3 low compression. You can figure out which cylinder had low compression that way. That's a quick and dirty way of doing it without, you wouldn't even need to lift the tank up for that. Well, you would technically to fuck me, I'm waffling, aren't I? Fucking start again, Jim. Jim, you're an idiot. Let me try and explain that a little bit better. So, 4 pistons, 1 2 3 4. When the number 1 and number 4 are up, number 2 and number 3 are down. And as number 1 and number 2, let's say they're at the top, as they start to come down the bore together, they're both travelling down. They're on a different stroke, but we won't get into that. So number 1 and number 4 cylinder are coming down the cylinder. As they're coming down, number 2 and number 3 are going up. So actually the air, as number 1 and number 4 go down and they're squashing air, if you like, in the crankcase, number 2 and number 3 are going up to make space for that air. So the net effect is, it's not really pumping out air. Do you see what I mean? If it was a single cylinder engine and one piston was going up and down, whatever the displacement of the piston going down was, that air would need to go somewhere, so you would physically get a volume of air coming out of here. Does that make better sense than the last attempt I had at explaining it? Anyway, so when you put your finger over here and you physically get pressure building, that pressure has to come from somewhere, and it's coming, the combustion gases are passing the piston rings and ending up in the crankcase. So there's a few different ways now there's a few different directions you could go in. So compression test, number 1. Really, we need to identify which cylinder it is now. That's the first thing. And then once we've identified which cylinder it is, we need to figure out why it's, well, we kind of know why it's broken. It's going to be compression rings, not, if it was a, right, bloody waffling. if it was a low compression situation, which it is, let's say we went in, we didn't know about this crankcase breather, and we just went in and did a compression test and one of the cylinders was low, we then want to know how is the compression escaping. Head gasket, unlikely. Leaky valves, more likely. Leaky piston rings, more likely. So you'd want to, if you'd just done a compression test, you'd then want to hone in on why you had no compression, but we're fairly certain now it's a piston ring problem. But we can do a cylinder leak test like I did on that other video, can't remember which one it was, the no wind one. Look back in my playlist and look for a video called No Wind if you want to understand cylinder leak testing. So let's dig a bit deeper and see if we can find exactly what's going wrong here. So I was gonna say, these are a fucking pain in the ass to get plugs in. Sorry, I've got a potty mouth on me today, I don't know what's wrong with me. These are a pain to get plugs in, I was going to say, because there's this stupid plastic cover thing in here that's a right pain to get out to get at the plugs. But it's not there. Whoever was here last thought, oh, I'm not going to bother putting that piece of the motorbike back together. Yeah, there should be a plastic like guard thing in here, which is completely missing. And then the other question the customer asked me was, have the carbs been in an ultrasonic cleaner? Because he was charged by this person that last worked on it to ultrasonically clean the carbs. You decide. I think the answer is probably, if they have been in an ultrasonic tank, they forgot to turn the ultrasonic tank on. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. Alright, so plugs out. And let's find out which cylinder's low. Try and find out why. Okay, cylinder number 1. Remember, compression testing, full throttle for volumetric efficiency reasons. Alright, well that's not great, is it? That's definitely too low. Let's do number 2. Okay, number 2. Okay, so she's way too low as well, so you're all thinking, so what should it be, Jim? You would expect absolute minimum out of something like this, about 180-ish, maybe 185. I'll have a look at the book in a minute and get the spec for it. Bit more lively, that's kind of barely enough. Do number 4. Right, that's number 4. So you're thinking, right then, it's dead then. So what's the actual spec supposed to be? Let me flash it up on the screen. Right, so 185 or whatever that is. Minimum, of course, it should be way over that. So number 3 and number 4 are like minimum requirement, and the other 2 cylinders, 1 and 2, are way too low. So that explains the heavy breathing from the breather. Now then, you might think I'm bonkers. Does that explain why we've got a dead cylinder at idle, a misfire at idle? No, I don't think it does. Well, it's not a misfire, it doesn't run on one of the 3 cylinders at tick over. Now if, okay, what were we getting? 135 or something, 130 or something on number 1 and number 2? Just cranking it with a starter motor. That is enough for it to run on that cylinder at tick over. It's not efficient, and there's definitely something wrong, but we shouldn't have a dead cylinder at idle. So there's something else going on as well. I mean, it's clearly the engine needs to come apart and it's breathing heavy, but that doesn't explain why it runs so badly and won't tick over. Let's put some vacuum gauges on it and just see what's going on. Right, so I've got a fuel supply hooked up to it just so I can run it without the tank and stuff on. So plugs are back in, coils are connected up. I'm just going to run it. I'm going to see which cylinder it's misfiring on just by, you know, feeling the temperature of the header pipes, because if I don't rev it up, it's just going to be on 3 cylinders. and the cylinder it isn't running on, the header pipe's going to be cold. Now it might be that the misfire might be on one of the cylinders with a higher compression, because I'm not, although it's clearly something quite wrong with it, that is not that sort of compression. So let me just reiterate that 125 psi just cranking on the starter motor with the engine spinning quick enough, that's more than enough compression for it to be able to tick over, and you know, maybe only at 85% efficiency, but it's enough for it to run okay at tick over. So my dead miss at idle is not being caused by that low compression. So let's just see which cylinder it is. Right, so I've still got, it's definitely on 3 cylinders. So just by putting my hand in and feeling the header pipes, I can feel, yeah, it's number 1. I can hold on to number 1 cylinder easily. Number 2's getting warm, number 3's getting warm, and number 4's getting warm. So if you remember from the compression test, number 2 actually had lower compression than number 1, so that sort of proves my point really, that there's something else causing it to misfire on that cylinder. Put the vacuum gauge is on now and we'll see. These are quite easy to get to the vacuum hoses to balance on these, rather than having to fart about trying to get a little screw out and put an adapter in. The hoses are already attached to the manifolds, and there's just little, this one goes to number 2 and number 4, and then I've already taken one of the blanks out, so that's number 1 and that's number 3, and there's a little blank that joins the plugs together. It would be just probably worth noting, it would be very easy at this point to say to the customer, mate, it's got low compression, we're done. But that's not the end of the diagnosis, and I think a lot of people would, a lot of mechanics would be like, I'm not interested now, it's got no compression, sorry mate, needs a new engine, bye. But I think there's more to this problem. You could, I could virtually guarantee you that you could get to a point, you know, rebuild the engine, loads of compression, put it back together, and you'd still have the dead miss on that number 1 cylinder. It's something else that's causing that dead miss. And I'm like a dog with a bone, I need to know. Okay, got some vacuum gauges hooked up. Let's see what she does. Okay. So, obviously, cylinder 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's just turn that off because I don't really need to look anymore. So, our dead miss on number 1 cylinder is not a massive carb balancing issue, but looking at that, given that these carbs have supposedly been off very recently, whoever did the work was not paying attention, because they haven't been synchronized. There's no way, they're a million miles out, and I could correct that, but that wouldn't correct our dead miss on number 1. So carbs off next, and let's have a look what's going on. So have they been in an ultrasonic cleaner? Fucking hell. Ooh, what's all that goo coming out of that float bowl gasket? They've definitely been apart. Let's see what these mixture screws are up to. Just out of interest. Half 1, half 2. Okay. This one. Half 1, half 2, okay. Just under 2. Yeah, sort of where you'd expect them to be. Right, let's get these float bowls off. I'm interested in number 1 carburetor, which is this one. This is the one that had the dead miss. My gut feeling would be the way the miss goes away as the throttle increases is probably maybe block pilot jet. Let's get it apart and have a look. Holy SH1T. Are you ready for this? I've already had this off and had a look. Are you ready? Oh my word. What is going on? Some sort of chimpanzee has been working on this bike. They've used some sort of silicon sealer, which obviously isn't fuel resistive, and look at all the crap inside. I'll bet my lottery win, if I ever get one, that pilot jet's blocked up with whatever that is. And look at that float bowl. It's like it looks like somebody's been scratching around in there trying to get the yeah, if these have been in an ultrasonic cleaner, I will eat my overalls. Not that I wear overalls. What a disaster. Seriously? The person that was working on this bike took actual money off the poor owner? That is shocking. Okay, so I'm pretty confident now that a proper carb clean, focus. We'll have a look at the others, they're just going to be as bad. It might be worth, I don't know whether I can do this on camera, but get a pilot jet out of idle mixture screw. You can tell if idle mixture screws have been cleaned because they're, I don't know whether I can get it out without, don't make me stop this shot and do more editing. They're dirty on the end if they haven't been cleaned. Focus. Come on, focus. What's happening? Focus. Focus. No. Yeah, I don't. It's not actually. To be fair, it's not as bad as you'd expect it to be. So maybe it's been cleaned. But this. Oh my days. That's like bodge central. Anyway, so I'm pretty certain that a proper carb clean and setup is going to fix this bike. I'm going to need to get them apart and make sure. I'm going to need to order some float bowl gaskets, clearly. See what else it needs. Pretty sure a carb clean is going to... It's not going to fix the low compression, but it'll mean it'll run okay for the guy in the medium term. Anyway, cool. Happy days. See you on the other side. I think we can conclude kind of 100% that these haven't been in an ultrasonic tank. See this jet? Well, this is actually the emulsion tube. That's the main jet in the end. So what now the fuel has evaporated off slightly. See all this furry stuff? That's old stale fuel from when it's been left standing and the fuel has evaporated. It's not hard to clean off. If these had been in an ultrasonic tank, that would be shiny brass. Yeah, this poor guy has had his hat well and truly nailed on. Shocking. And another thing that I've just found, these float needle valves, I mean, they clearly haven't been cleaned, but and this just proves that whoever was in here last really wasn't paying attention to what was going on. Get this to blooming focus. So in the end of the float needle here is, let's get one that's okay. See this little plungery thing? Bloody hell, I can't do it on camera. See how it's spring loaded? Right, well this one, well two of them actually, see solid. Absolutely solid. Yeah. Oh dearie me. Pretty worn actually. Focus. So where that seals in that, where that the seat in the carburettor for that is like a little brass seat. I should get you a shot of that. Get some light on the subject. So down in there is where the little seat sits. It's filthy dirty. Anything brass like that that's you know, bin in an ultrasonic cleaner will be shiny. And then of course we've got weird exposure. We've got all this weird silicone-y goo inside the carbs just blocking everything up. It's a disaster. If you're going to go to the trouble of ultrasonically cleaning carbs, do you think you might clean the air filter? Holy moly!